The shock still hadn't worn off, not even after all these weeks. It lingered, clinging to me like a damp coat I couldn't shake, creeping in during the quiet of the night, reminding me of how deeply I'd been betrayed. My own daughter, Sierra, 27 years old, had told me I wasn't welcome at her wedding. Kicked out. Shut out of an event I was, quite painfully, paying for. The words felt surreal, like they belonged in some over-the-top soap opera, not in my life. Me, Colin, 59 years old, the father of the bride. Or at least, I used to be the father of the bride, back when I thought I'd be standing proudly at the altar. Even sharing this story feels like ripping open a wound. It's not pretty, it hurts. But maybe putting it all out there, piece by piece, will help me make sense of the wreckage. Sierra, my daughter. She's always had, let's call it a fiery personality. That's the polite way to say it, right? When she was little, she'd throw full-on meltdowns over something as small as not getting dessert or having to go to bed early. In her teenage years, silence and slammed doors became her preferred form of protest. My wife, Melanie, Sierra's stepmom for the past 14 years, and I did our best to weather those years with a mix of patience and crossed fingers. Like most families, we had our share of highs and lows. But this felt like a complete breakdown, like a canyon had opened between us, too wide to cross. She'd been dating Nolan for around 4 years. Nolan, from the beginning, I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but something about him rubbed me the wrong way. He had that overly smooth charm, always smiling, but it never seemed to reach his eyes. He claimed to work in financial consulting, which is just vague enough to mean anything or nothing at all. Despite no clear signs of a solid paycheck, he lived pretty comfortably. Sierra, who did freelance graphic design work when she could, was head over heels. They weren't exactly rolling in money, more like occasionally stumbling across it. So when the topic of the wedding came up, and they started dreaming up this grand celebration way beyond their means, I offered to step in. It was during a Saturday dinner. I told them I'd cover the costs. It was a genuine gesture, meant to make things easier for them, and to see my daughter start her marriage off without financial stress. I knew weddings were money pits. My first wedding, back when I married Sierra's mom, was small and simple. Later, when Melanie and I tied the knot, we went even smaller, just close friends and a quiet venue. But Sierra had always dreamed of something big. So I said, let me take care of it. It's my gift to you. I caught Nolan shooting me a quick, calculating look before he gave me that well-practiced, grateful smile. I really did want to support them, and maybe, if I'm being honest, I hoped it might buy me a little appreciation or smooth out any bumps between us. A bit of thanks would have been nice, some kind of sign that they knew this wasn't a small thing. Instead, Sierra gave me a quick nod with this smug little smile. Thanks, Dad. That really helps, she said, like I was offering to pick up takeout, not funding a full-blown wedding. Nolan turned on the charm, of course, took my hand and said, Colin, you're a lifesaver. We can't thank you enough. But his eyes were as hard to read as ever, no real warmth there. At first, things seemed to go smoothly. They had a planner, and from the outside, it looked like they knew what they were doing. And yes, everything was being paid for out of my pocket. I tried to keep my distance, didn't want to come across like I was trying to run the show. But little things started to eat at me. One afternoon, Melanie and I dropped by their tiny apartment. Sierra was glued to her laptop, endlessly scrolling through Pinterest with a stressed look on her face. Melanie, always gentle with Sierra like she was trying not to spook a wild bird, asked softly, Everything okay, sweetie? Sierra let out this exaggerated sigh. The venue Nolan wants has a minimum guest list we're struggling to meet unless we start inviting people like his third cousin's ex-wife, she muttered. Nolan, stretched out on the couch like he owned the place, laughed. It's a high-end venue, babe. It's worth the extra effort. Trying to be helpful, I chimed in. I was just thinking about the seating arrangements. Some of those old buildings have weird chair setups. Want me to look into renting some matching chairs? Or maybe some extra decorations to fill out the room if the guest count's a little low. I can take care of it. No big deal. Sierra didn't even glance up. It's fine, Dad. We've got it covered. She shut me down so fast it caught me off guard. You sure? I asked, still trying to be supportive. It's no trouble. I figured it's better to have more options than not enough. That's when Nolan leaned in and gently touched her arm. Colin, that's incredibly kind, but Sierra has such a good eye for these things. He smiled, smooth as ever. She and the planner have it all figured out. No need to give you more to worry about. Then Sierra snapped her head up and glared at me. Yeah, Dad, she said sharply. We don't need you micromanaging every little thing, okay? We're grown-ups. We can handle our own wedding. That word, micromanaging, hit hard. I wasn't trying to control anything. I was just offering help. Hey, I said, my voice a little tighter than I meant it to be. I just want to make sure you've got everything you need. It's a big investment, and I want it to be everything you hoped for. Nolan jumped in again with that silky voice. And we do appreciate it, Colin. Truly, we really do. Sierra's just feeling the pressure, that's all. Right, sweetheart? Nolan said, giving her arm a squeeze. She let out a vague grunt and kept her eyes glued to her laptop screen. I glanced over at Melanie. Her face didn't give much away, but I caught that small flicker in her eyes, that quiet little red flag. Those little moments kept piling up. Nothing big, just enough to feel like sand grinding in the gears. Nolan was always present, always smoothing things over, twisting what I said into something well-meaning but unnecessary. Almost like he was trying to reinforce this idea that I was overstepping. Always the helpful dad turned annoying meddler. More time went by. I kept signing checks, making deposits. The florist, the catering, that absurdly pricey venue Nolan was obsessed with, they all got paid. I stayed out of the way, like they wanted. But then a thought crossed my mind, my brother Wesley. Sierra and Wesley had always been close. He's her godfather, and growing up, he was the fun uncle who spoiled her with candy and toys and stories. So I figured, hey, what harm could it do to add him to the list? I gave the wedding planner a call. Miss Penrose, very professional, always brisk and efficient, which up until then had felt reassuring. Miss Penrose, Colin Dalton here. Quick thing, I'd like to make sure my brother Wesley is on the guest list. I know it's kind of last minute, but they're close. There was a pause on the other end. Not just a polite pause, an uncomfortable one. Mr. Dalton, she said finally, her voice a little tight. I'm afraid the guest list has already been finalized. It's quite full. Full, I laughed, not quite believing what I was hearing. It's a wedding, not a lifeboat. I think we can make room for one more, especially family. She didn't budge. Sierra and Nolan were very clear on the numbers. The venue has strict limits based on their layout. That didn't sit right. Clear how? I asked. Could you send me the guest list? Maybe I can help find someone who might not be able to make it, and we could adjust. She hesitated again. I'll need to speak with Sierra first. Speak with Sierra? About whether or not she could send the guest list to me? The guy footing the entire bill? My patience was slipping. Just send it, please, I said. About 25 minutes later, the email hit my inbox. Subject line, DNA wedding, final guest list. My hand actually trembled as I clicked it open. I scrolled through it once. Then again. Then a third time. My name wasn't on it. Neither was Melanie's. My heart didn't just sink. It hit the ocean floor. I kept trying to convince myself it had to be a mistake. A simple oversight. How could my own daughter, whose wedding I was practically bankrolling, forget to include her father? And Melanie, who had never been anything but kind to her. I called Miss Penrose again, my voice calm, but barely. Miss Penrose, I said. There seems to be a pretty major error on this guest list. My wife and I, our names aren't there. She went quiet. Then a soft sigh came through the line. Mr. Dalton, this is very awkward. Awkward? No, spilling a drink on the bride's dress is awkward. This was something else entirely. Did Sierra forget to include us? I asked, though even as I said it, I knew it was a dumb question. No, sir, she whispered. Sierra and Nolan provided the final list with very specific instructions. I felt the room tilt. Instructions about what? I asked. That you and Mrs. Dalton were not to be invited. Everything went still. My ears rang. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. And, she added, quickly now, like she just wanted it off her chest, they also requested extra security at the venue to ensure no uninvited individuals gained access. Uninvited individuals. That was me. Her father. I couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. It was cold. Calculated. Brutal. Proof, I finally rasped. I want proof. An email. Something. She sent it over right away. Probably wanted to be rid of it. There it was. Black and white. No room for doubt. An email from Nolan's account, with Sierra copied. Miss Penrose, please find attached the final guest list. As discussed, my fiancé and I require strict adherence to this list. For clarity, Colin and Melanie Dalton are not to be invited, and we ask for your firm's discretion in handling any inquiries from their side. Please confirm arrangements for 2 additional security staff at the entrance to prevent unauthorized access. And right below that, Sierra had signed off. Absolutely. This is perfect, Nolan. Thanks for handling. Weeks. They'd been setting this up for weeks, scheming, plotting, while I was out there cutting checks, thinking I was making her dreams come true. That kind of betrayal, it didn't just sting, it hurt. Deep in the chest, like a blade. And it wasn't just about being left off a list. It was the cold, calculated way they went about it. You could practically see Nolan's fingerprints all over it. He'd handled it. But why? Was it the arguments we'd had? The times I stood my ground when I should have backed down? Did my attempts to help come off as controlling? Were my mistakes so unforgivable that I no longer deserved a seat at my own daughter's wedding? I thought about the rough years. When school overwhelmed her. When she started running with the wrong crowd. When I found those pills in her backpack at 16 and felt like I'd aged 10 years on the spot. I'd been there. Melanie had been there. We'd gotten her help. Sat through those brutal therapy sessions. Took the hits when she lashed out. And this was what we got in return? This wasn't just a mix-up. This was deliberate. This was her drawing a line and leaving me on the outside. Yeah, the anger was there, no doubt. But underneath it, a sadness so heavy it felt like it might pull me straight to the bottom. I didn't know what my next move was, but one thing was clear. This wasn't about wedding plans anymore. This was something much deeper, something broken between us that Nolan had found a way to twist even further. When I finally hung up with Miss Penrose, the house was dead silent. Melanie had watched the whole thing, saw the color drain from my face. I barely got the words out, stumbling through my explanation. Then I handed her the printed emails. She read them with a calm, cold stare. Then she looked up at me. "Colin," she said, voice steady but low. "This isn't just Sierra. That man. Nolan, he's poison." And she was right. Nolan's influence was all over this mess. But Sierra, she'd signed off on it. She knew exactly what she was doing, and it cut deeper than I expected. She knew exactly what she was doing, and it cut deeper than I expected. The days dragged on, heavy and endless. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. Every single time. Her inbox was full, of course. I told myself she was busy. A weak lie I didn't believe for a second. The emails from the planner just kept rolling in, each one a gut punch. The confrontation was inevitable. If she wasn't going to come to me, I'd go to her. I drove to their apartment, that same tight feeling in my stomach I used to get before a big client meeting. But this time, it wasn't nerves. It was dread and fury tangled together. What would I say? What would she say? Sierra answered the door with a look I'll never forget. Not surprise, no. It was like she expected me, but not in a good way. Nolan stood just behind her, one arm slung around her waist like he owned the place. His face, cool and unreadable. "Dad," Sierra said flatly. "What do you want?" Like I was someone trying to sell her a vacuum cleaner. What do I want? I tried to keep my tone calm. I want to know why I'm not invited to my daughter's wedding. The wedding I'm paying for, I might add. She let out this long, tired sigh, like she was dealing with a child. Nolan gave her shoulder a little squeeze, and she mumbled, "We figured you'd find out eventually." Find out? I repeated. "Sierra, this isn't some surprise party. You and Nolan made a conscious decision to cut me and Melanie out of your life. You even hired security to make sure we couldn't show up. Why?" I could hear the shake in my voice now, half fury, half heartbreak. Nolan took a small step forward. "Colin, maybe this isn't the best time. Sierra's been under a lot of stress lately." "Stress?" I snapped. "You want to talk about stress?" "I saved you the trouble of having to show up," Sierra cut in coldly. "Honestly, Dad, it would have just been awkward." Awkward. Awkward. I stared at her. Speechless. "Yeah," she said, smirking now, feeding off Nolan's confidence. "I'll send you a few pictures if I get around to it." And that was it. My patience cracked. The dam burst. "What is wrong with you?" I shouted, stepping forward. Nolan immediately shifted in front of her like some kind of bodyguard. "Now, Colin," he warned, low and controlled, "let's not escalate. Sierra has her reasons." "Oh, I bet she does," I spat. "So go ahead. Let's hear them, Sierra. Tell me, what exactly did I do that was so awful you felt the need to erase me from your wedding?" And then came the list. Like they'd rehearsed it. Everything I'd ever done wrong. Every time I hadn't jumped to her defense. Every choice I'd questioned. I wasn't supportive enough. I didn't praise her enough. I showed off Melanie too much. And the kicker, "You always favored your new life," she said, her voice heavy with venom. It was always Melanie this, Melanie that. You forgot you had a daughter. That's not true. I shouted, heart pounding. Melanie has done nothing but try to be kind to you. Even when you'd been, I couldn't even finish the sentence. The word impossible got stuck in my throat. Nolan jumped in, his voice all calm and smooth, like he was the voice of reason. She feels abandoned, Colin, he said. When you got remarried, that was hard on her. Maybe your attention shifted without you realizing it. My attention never shifted away from loving my daughter, I said, staring right at Sierra, hoping she'd hear the truth in my voice. Those pills, Sierra. When you got caught with them, who stepped in? Who got you help? Who sat next to you in every single counseling session? I shot a glance at Nolan. It sure as hell wasn't him. He wasn't even around back then. It was me. And Melanie. Sierra flinched when I mentioned the pills. Shame flickered in her eyes for half a second, but then it was gone, replaced by anger. You always use that against me, she snapped. You loved playing the hero. The martyr dad. Nolan jumped back in, still playing the mediator. What she's saying is your way of helping sometimes felt more like control. Judgment. She needed unconditional support, and once Melanie came along, she didn't feel like she had that from you. He said Melanie's name like it was some kind of curse. I felt the tears building up, burning, humiliating tears. What did I do that was so horrible, Sierra? What did I do that's so unforgivable? I asked, nearly whispering at this point. I was desperate. Her face was stone, cold. You were never on my side, she said again, like it was her personal motto. You picked Melanie. You didn't care about me. That's not true, I said, completely stunned. You know that's not true. Is it though? Nolan chimed in quietly. Perception is reality, Colin. And Sierra sees a long pattern of what feels like emotional neglect. They were in sync, like they had rehearsed this whole thing. He was twisting her old wounds into something ugly, feeding her poison. You're nothing but negative in my life, Dad, Sierra said finally. Her voice didn't even waver. This wedding is a fresh start for Nolan and me. And honestly, having you, or Melanie, there, it would ruin it. So please leave. You're not welcome. I just stood there, looking at her, at the daughter I thought I knew, and the man standing beside her, looking proud of what he'd done. I turned and walked out, hollow, beaten, like I'd lost more than just a daughter. I'd lost the whole memory of her. Their faces burned into my brain, hers cold as ice, his smug and victorious. The drive home was a blur. Melanie was waiting. She looked like she'd been pacing for hours. I told her everything, Nolan's manipulation, Sierra's accusations, all of it. He's isolating her, Melanie said, trembling with rage. He's cutting her off from everyone who truly cares. What's he get out of this? I asked, even though I already knew. Control, I answered myself. If I'm out of the picture, he's got full control. And maybe he thinks he'll get easier access to my money that way. Or at least keep Sierra completely dependent on him. The days that followed felt like walking through fog, shock, and fury mingling with heartbreak. The wedding was just under 2 weeks away. The deposits? All non-refundable. Tens of thousands down the drain for a wedding I wasn't even allowed to attend. One afternoon, I found myself by the window, still clutching that awful email. Melanie sat down beside me. What are you going to do? She asked quietly. I turned to her, and something in me clicked into place. Cold. Certain. They want a wedding without me? Fine. But they won't get it on my dime. Colin, she said, half surprised. No, Melanie. Enough is enough, I said. This isn't just Sierra being dramatic. This is straight up malicious. Nolan's pulling the strings. And Sierra's letting him. She said I bring negativity? All right. Then I'm pulling my positive contribution, all of it. Melanie's eyes widened, then her face lit up with a slow smile. It's about damn time, Colin. If she doesn't respect you enough to want you there, she doesn't deserve a cent. Let him pay for his fancy wedding. And just like that, I felt something shift inside me. Like I'd finally stood up. I grabbed the phone and called Miss Penrose. Miss Penrose, this is Colin Dalton. Regarding the wedding of Sierra Dalton and Nolan Price. Yes, Mr. Dalton, she said, her voice a bit cautious. It's canceled. All of it. The venue, the caterer, the flowers, everything. As the one funding this entire event, I'm pulling out. Effective immediately. Please contact all vendors. She was quiet for a second. Mr. Dalton, are you sure? That's a massive financial loss. I'm fully aware of the cost, I said. But some lessons are worth the price. I'm not sure who's supposed to learn it yet, but the wedding is off. Send me confirmation when everything's canceled. I hung up. A little petty? Maybe. But it was more than that. It was me reclaiming my dignity. I wasn't just some doormat. I wasn't a wallet. And there was no way I was going to pay for a celebration I wasn't even invited to, especially not for a daughter who'd pushed me away and a fiancé who was clearly pulling the strings behind the scenes. The fallout came fast. Miss Penrose followed through and informed all the vendors. I didn't have to wait long for the blowback. The next morning, the venue manager called me in a panic, wanting to know what on earth was going on. I held my ground. Calmly, I told the venue manager the same thing I'd been telling everyone. No money, no wedding. If they had a problem with it, they could take it up with Sierra and Nolan. Then came the calls. Dozens of them. All from Sierra. My voicemail filled up with her flipping between screaming and crying, then back to screaming again. I didn't answer a single one. Just blocked her number. That night, Melanie and I were finally sitting down to a quiet dinner, our first peaceful meal in what felt like forever, when the pounding started. It was coming from the front gate. Colin. Dad. Open this gate right now. You can't do this. Her voice was shrill, cracking from rage and panic. Melanie gave me a questioning look. Don't, I said, shaking my head. I'd already changed the code to the gate. We sat there listening to her yell, rant, and shake the bars like someone completely out of control. Then I heard Nolan, trying to calm her down at first, but that didn't last long. Dalton, come out and face us. You've turned everything upside down. Yeah, I'd ruined their plans. But I was saving my own sanity. Eventually, the yelling died off, and I heard their car peel out of the driveway. A few days later, my parents called. Of course, Sierra had already gotten to them, feeding them some twisted version of events. She made herself sound like this poor, heartbroken daughter who had been wronged by her cold-hearted father. Colin, how could you? My mom asked, hurt thick in her voice. Cancel her wedding? Her special day? That's so harsh. She's your daughter. I was tired, emotionally worn down, but I spoke clearly. Mom, you don't know everything. She and Nolan cut me out of the wedding even after I paid for everything. They hired security to keep me out. There was silence on the line. Banned you? She asked, stunned. Why would they do that? Apparently, I'm a negative influence. And Melanie? I sighed. She's an embarrassment. Their words, not mine. I told them to ask Sierra about the emails. Ask her what role Nolan played in all this. But they didn't really get it. They were still holding on to the old-school idea of family sticking together no matter what, turning the other cheek. Well, I'd reached my limit. Emotionally, I was bruised and tired of being walked all over. The months that followed were oddly quiet. No more drama. No more screaming. No updates from Sierra. Just silence. It was peaceful. And yet, it hurt. Like something important had died, and no one came to the funeral. Then one chilly afternoon in the fall, my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail. Hello? Colin, it's Nolan. His voice sent a chill down my spine. What do you want? I asked, coldly. But his tone wasn't the same smug one I remembered. He sounded off, hesitant, tired. Can we meet? He asked. There's something I need to tell you. About Sierra. Everything in me screamed not to trust him. It felt like a trap. Another manipulation. I don't think we have anything left to talk about, Nolan. Please, Colin. It's important. For her sake. And I owe you an apology. An apology? From Nolan? That caught me off guard. Against my better judgment, and maybe because I still had a small sliver of concern for my daughter, I agreed to meet. Neutral ground. A quiet coffee shop. He looked terrible. Sunken eyes, jittery hands. None of the slick, confident guy who'd once turned my daughter against me. Thanks for coming, he muttered, nervously stirring his coffee like it held answers. You said it was about Sierra, I said flatly. He nodded, took a deep breath. We separated. About a month ago. I just waited. Let him talk. It wasn't working. Sierra, she's got some serious issues, Colin. I couldn't help myself. Issues you encouraged, when it suited you. He winced. Yeah, you're right. I was an idiot. Worse, I was a coward. And manipulative. He paused, looking down at his cup. When we got together, she was already angry. Angry at you, jealous of Melanie. I didn't help. I made it worse. I leaned into it. He was unraveling in front of me. I wanted her to rely on me. I thought if she felt isolated, she'd need me more. So I twisted things. Made you out to be controlling. Told her Melanie would steal the spotlight at the wedding. I stared at him, my jaw tight. He just kept going. I was the one who convinced her to cut you off. The emails? That was me. She was upset, sure, but I made it worse. I used it to my advantage. I was stunned. The man had orchestrated the moment that broke me, that took my daughter away from me. Why now? I asked. Why are you telling me all this? He looked me in the eyes. What was left of them, anyway? Because after the wedding got canceled, she fell apart. Completely. The anger, turns out it wasn't just aimed at you. It turned on me. She lost control emotionally, yelling, tossing stuff around, accusing me of things that weren't true. He looked genuinely scared. I'd seen flashes of it before, but when you were out of the picture, there was no one else to blame. It all landed on me. So the rage hadn't been invented by Nolan, but he sure as hell helped it grow. She needs help, Colin, he said quietly. Real help. Not excuses. Not someone playing along. She wouldn't even consider getting help while they were still together. According to her, he was the problem, but it ran deeper than that. She's just deeply unhappy, Nolan said quietly. And she drags everyone down with her. She's burned every bridge. Doesn't have a single friend left. I looked at him hard. So why are you telling me this now? He swallowed and said, because I feel responsible. For isolating her. For pushing her further down this path. His voice cracked a little. And because, even with everything, I did care about her once. And maybe, just maybe, you're the only one left who can reach her. Get her to talk to someone. A real therapist. He looked down at his hands, wringing them like he didn't know what to do with them. She blames me for everything, he said. For leaving. For the wedding falling apart. Says I betrayed her. He sounded like a man barely holding it together. Someone who'd built a fire and now couldn't put it out. Maybe he was trying to unload his guilt. Maybe he was genuinely remorseful. Maybe both. She said you were showing Melanie off too much, I said evenly. And that she didn't feel proud of her. Nolan winced. Yeah. I might have planted that idea, he admitted. Made it sound like people would judge. That Melanie didn't fit the image. He sighed, voice heavy with regret. It was cruel. I just wanted Sierra to feel like we were the better couple. Classier. Stronger. It was all about my own insecurities, honestly, tearing you down to feel taller. It was a complete confession, raw and honest. But the harm was already done. He hadn't just manipulated the situation, he let his own insecurities take over. And he took advantage of my daughter's vulnerability. I appreciate the honesty, I said, my voice flat. Even if it's about 2 years too late. But let's be clear, Sierra made her own choices. She's not a kid anymore. I know, he said. I just thought you deserved to know what really happened. That I pushed for that wedding stunt. That I made things worse. And she's alone now. Maybe if she heard that I admitted all this, maybe she'd listen to you. Even in his so-called repentance, he was still nudging responsibility my way. Still hoping I'd mop up the mess he helped make. I left that coffee shop with a sour taste in my mouth. Nolan, who'd been the driving force behind so much heartache, now trying to pass the baton, claiming it was for Sierra's sake. But one line stuck with me. She's alone. That hit something deep down. That stubborn part of me that still saw her as my little girl. Melanie warned me, gently but firmly. Colin, she'll only hurt you again. Nolan's just trying to unload his guilt. And maybe she was right. Still. I went. Sierra's apartment was a disaster. Half-eaten takeout containers, dirty laundry everywhere. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were dark and empty. Her hair was tangled and unwashed. As soon as she saw me, the flicker of hope I'd carried with me crumbled. What do you want? She rasped, voice sharp as broken glass. Sierra, I said carefully. Nolan called me. He told me some things about the wedding. His part in it. Nolan. Her eyes narrowed, instantly full of anger. That guy turned everything upside down. He walked out on me. Sierra, I said, trying to keep my tone steady, he told me you've been having a hard time. I came because I'm worried. I just want to help. Maybe you could talk to someone. A therapist. It was like I'd thrown a grenade. Therapy. She shrieked. You think I'm the one who needs help? You're the problem. You and that woman you married. Her anger flared up like wildfire. The way she spoke about Melanie was harsher than I ever imagined. Don't you dare talk about Melanie like that. I snapped. I'll talk about her however I want. She screamed back. I couldn't stand her. It always felt like she took you away from me. I even regretted having her at my wedding. I hated the thought of people thinking she was my stepmother. She only cared about money and ended up tearing our family apart. Each word hit like a hammer. She was pacing like a caged animal now, wild and unpredictable. You always took her side. You let her turn you against me. Everything that's gone wrong in my life, everything, is because of you. You ruined my wedding. You chose Nolan over me, didn't you? He probably fed you a bunch of lies just to make himself look good. I tried to talk, to calm her down, but it was like reasoning with a storm. She wasn't listening, just spewing every hurt, every twisted memory, every grudge she'd hoarded over the years. She blamed me for her failed relationships, for her floundering career, for her broken engagement. Nolan might have been the match, but apparently, I was the fire. I stood there and took it, let it crash over me. Years of pent-up resentment poured out like poison. And finally, when I couldn't take another word, I lifted my hands. Okay, Sierra, I said quietly. My voice was tired. Hollow. Okay. I tried. I really did. But I can't do this anymore. I turned and started walking away. Yeah, go ahead and run, she screamed behind me. That's all you ever do. Run back to your precious Melanie. I hope you both get what you deserve. I didn't respond. Just kept walking slow, steady, without so much as a glance back. No door slammed. No yelling. I just left. Because at that point, there really wasn't anything left to say. Nothing left to offer. Whatever part of me had still been holding out hope, still aching for some kind of reconciliation, that part died right there in that wreck of an apartment, buried under all the shouting and bitterness. This time, I didn't just draw a line. I carved it deep, like stone. And then 2 years. 2 solid years of quiet. No drama. No chaos. Just peace. Melanie and I found a new rhythm, one that actually felt like healing. Sure, there were still moments where Sierra's memory crept in around the edges. That kind of pain doesn't vanish overnight. It just turns into a scar. Something that doesn't throb anymore but still reminds you what it cost. She wasn't taken by fate. She was taken by her own demons. And Nolan? He didn't help. He used those demons. Played them like strings. I'd heard he'd already moved on, engaged again, charming someone new. Controlling someone new, probably. And when family or old friends would tiptoe around Sierra's name, hinting or fishing, I'd stop them with a simple, I'd rather not talk about that. No stories. No excuses. I didn't know anyone that anymore. And for the first time in years, I actually slept. No tightness in my gut. No dread clawing at my chest. Just peace. Then a few days ago, my mom called. Her voice was softer than usual, careful, like she was walking on glass. Colin, she said, I thought you should know. It's Sierra. I didn't panic. My heart didn't jump or race. Just stayed steady. Calm. She's in a mental health facility, Mom said. It's been a few weeks. Had a very public breakdown. And I could picture it, almost too clearly, the yelling, the chaos, the emotional meltdown. It was the path she'd been on for years, the crash landing we all saw coming but couldn't stop. She's not doing well, my mom said, her voice starting to crack. Depressed, unstable, agitated. And then, the part one knew was coming. She's been asking about family. She's been asking for you. She paused, then added, Nolan wants nothing to do with her. Of course he didn't. No surprise there. Silence hung between us for a while. Then she asked it. Do you think you'll go see her, Colin? She's your daughter, after all. Maybe she's ready now. Maybe she'll finally accept help. I looked outside at the garden Melanie and I had worked on together. It was quiet, blooming, peaceful, everything my life used to lack. And I answered without hesitation, but gently. No, Mom, I won't. She didn't say anything at first, but I could feel her heart break in that silence. That quiet sorrow that only a mother can carry. But I didn't rush in to fill it. Not this time. Because I've spent my whole life doing that, plugging the gaps, patching the wounds, trying to fix what couldn't be fixed. Not anymore. This isn't about payback or spite. It's not about Nolan or Sierra or the wreckage they left behind. It's about me finally protecting what I have left. I did everything I could. I reached out. Again and again. I gave time, money, love, patience, only to get burned each time. There comes a point where trying isn't noble anymore. It's self-destruction. There's a line where love becomes damage. And I crossed that line one too many times. I made my decision in that doorway full of screaming and blame. And Nolan's sudden attempt at guilt-sharing only made it clearer. I've earned this peace. Fought hard for it. And I won't throw it away out of guilt or pressure. Some bridges are never meant to be rebuilt. Some chasms are just too deep. And that's something I've finally accepted.